Hey, it's Don again, and here we go. I think I've made my decision. If you watched the last video, you saw me vacillating about how I was going to get my stern thrusters installed on the boat when none of the shops around here or boat yards around the Seattle area will bother themselves by calling me back. So I had mentioned that this might be a project I could do myself, and I think that I've decided that it is, in fact, a project I can do myself. So let's talk about how we're going to get prepared to do this so that it goes smoothly. All right, so for any project to go well, the most important part of it, I think, is planning the thing out. When I was running my own company, that was one of the things that I thought was really important was if we were doing a complex project, we spent a lot of time planning it through, planning it out, thinking it through, trying to figure out what we're going to need, what tools would we have to have. A lot of times we were going off into the middle of Wyoming somewhere to do some work. And so we tried to make sure that we thought through everything we'd need to take with us and all that kind of thing. I'm going to do the same thing with this. I've already started, now that I've kind of made the decision to do this myself, I've already started mentally planning the work and thinking about how I'm going to go through it. Luckily, I do have a pretty well put together installation guide for this stuff. Now, let's just quickly recap the details. I bought the Sideshift Stern Thrusters, and I bought their model ST350D. Now, let's see if they put a dash in there or not. Yeah, they do. So, ST350-D, meaning dual. So there's two thrusters that are going to go on the back transom, and they're going to bolt through the transom. The bolt holes go through above the waterline. We're going to put an L bracket back there, so the bracket bolts to the back of the boat, has an L-shaped plate sticking out that the thruster bolts to, and it hangs down from there, goes into the water, and that's how our propellers stay under the water. So there are a couple requirements that they have. They want the thrusters to be at least 24 inches apart. That's going to be no problem. We got a 12-foot beam or something like that here. So even with trim tabs back there, which I do have, which I'll revisit that because I don't know what you'd use trim tabs for. But anyway, I do. I mean, on a boat that doesn't go very fast. Anyway, I do have trim tabs back there. So we'll have to work around those a little bit, but with no problem, I'll be able to get these things 24 inches apart. And then the other requirement is that you have to kind of mark your water line on the boat and make sure that your propellers for the thrusters have at least 5 inches of water over the top of them so they don't just cavitate when you're trying to run them and move the boat around. So basically, that's what we're going to accomplish. I don't know how well that'll show up, but we're going to put these two thrusters back there, bolt them up and put them through. The thrusters are 24-volt systems. It's because they've got a propeller on either side of each thruster, so each thruster's got two propellers. So these are the higher powered versions, so each thruster requires two batteries hooked in series, two 12-volt batteries hooked in series to make 24 volts. And each thruster wants its own set of batteries. So that's okay. I've got a place already planned out where I'm going to put those. And I'll show you down in the aft cabin on either side of the bed, there's a cupboard. The cupboards have a false floor in them. When you lift that false floor out, there's an area down in there that's got nothing in it right now. And I can put a little board in there to hold my batteries and a board on the side that it says you want to mount all your equipment to, so you can lift that out, mount everything up, get it all wired up, and then put it in there and hook it up. So that, I have a place to put it. I just need to get down in there a little bit with the tape measure and make sure everything's going to fit, but I think that will be just fine. I am addressing right now your concerns of me putting batteries next to my head in the bedroom, okay? I'm going to use sealed up AGM batteries, not lead acid batteries. I don't have any lead acid batteries on the boat anymore, and I don't want any on the boat. And I already have a AGM battery under the bed. All right, this is Editor Don checking in here for just a second. I do have to, in my own defense, explain that I do know that I should be saying an AGM battery, not a AGM battery. I did this in the last video, and you know, it takes me 10 takes to get every one of these things recorded properly so I can save it. So it's not worth going back and chopping in a new chunk just to fix one word. But it bugs me when I hear it, and if my English major kid was watching this, I know there will also be consternation, and probably a few other friends and family who are watching along and be like, don't you know how to speak, Don? So yeah, I do know how to use my words. I just don't always use them properly when speaking to the camera. Under the lower bed in the forward helm, or the forward berth up there, for the bow thruster. So I've already got a battery in a living space. It's in a box, it's an AGM battery. I think it's fine. I don't think it's any more dangerous what I'm thinking of doing than what I have up there already. So there's that. And my plan is just to hook a separate little battery charger to either 2 battery chargers or 1 charging both sets, depending on what we do. I'll have to research that. But I'm just going to put a little standalone battery chargers up there because these batteries are not going to be used all the time, okay? You're just using a little bit of power in short bursts while you're docking the boat, and then you just want to top it back up again when you're done. It's not like you're going to be worried about running these all the way down and getting them charged back up and so forth in a hurry. It's just for thrusting. So I think that will be fine, and that eliminates the need for me to figure out how to get all hooked into those DC to DC chargers and running, you know, heavy gauge wire from the back of the boat up into the engine compartment and all that kind of stuff. That just simplifies that quite a bit. It also looks like all the controls for this stuff are wireless. So there is no wire that has to be run from the boat from back there where the batteries are up to the helm stations. You just put these controllers in and give them power, it looks like, and then they talk to the thing over probably Bluetooth or something like that. So that's going to simplify things a lot. That was one of the things I was a little bit worried about. And it also looks like what I may wind up doing, they sent me a controller for the bow thruster that's already here, and it looks like what I might wind up doing is putting that controller down there by the bow thruster and eliminating the wiring that goes up to the physical switch that's on the upper helm. And if so, then we're eliminating wiring as we do this instead of adding more, and that's a good thing. So all in all, I think I can do this. I will have to haul the boat out because obviously I don't want to try to be hanging upside down over the swim platform drilling holes in the back of the boat. So I'll need to schedule a haul out, but I can do that right here at CV West Boatyard, which is right in my backyard. And you know, I would literally back out of the slip, turn around, drive over there, lift the boat up. And I believe that I could probably do this in a day or 2 days on blocks in the yard, and that's going to keep the cost of that down, because you do pay for getting hauled out and then going back in, and you pay for the time that you're tied up in the yard there. So when it comes time to physically doing that work of installing the thing, there's an L bracket that I think I showed you when I was looking at this thing, and if I can show it, I'll show it to you as I get ready to do this. But there's an L bracket that's basically going to have 4 holes that go through the transom that bolt that thing to the transom. So the only real part of this that will be unable to be done by one person is holding a wrench on the outside and being inside of the boat, turning the nut to tighten down that L bracket. But my guess is, and I'll talk to the yard to verify this, that for that work, I could probably pay for an hour's time of one of the yard workers and have them just come hold the wrench for me. And then once the bracket's there, then I'm sure I can just lift the thruster up and put the bolts through and hang it on there, or same thing, just have one of the guys help me hold it up there and while I put the bolts in or whatever. So I think this can be done by yours truly. So that's the tentative plan at this point. Now, let's talk about what else we're going to do to maximize our time while we got this thing out of the water. So if I'm going to be in the boatyard, I want to make sure that I do everything else I can think of that would need to be done or would be easier to be done while on land. And I do have a couple things already in mind. One is I've been thinking about getting a longer run of chain on the anchor up there. I think I might have mentioned this before when I was first kind of putting that 100 feet run on there, that I've got 100 feet of chain, and I put that out pretty much all the time. I always wind up putting out all 100 feet. And so either, you know, the rope is there at the winch, or the rope is past the winch and I'm kind of tying the rope to the Samson posts. What I would prefer to do is to pony up for, let's say 200 to 250 feet of chain. And I think what would happen then more likely is I'll put 100 feet out, or 125 feet or 150 feet, but I will then still have chain on the boat. It will still be chain going through the winch. And there's, you know, an official chain snubber that you buy that hooks onto your chain and has two nice big stout ropes that come up, hooked to your Samson posts, so that then you continue to let chain out until that snubber is taking all the weight, and that gives you some stability, and it keeps your chain from rattling around up front and whatever. But that all I think would be much better to do. And obviously if I'm trying to use that chain snubber, but I want it more than 100 feet of chain out right now, I wouldn't be able to do it because I'd be into rope at that point. So if I need to buy new chain, it looks to me like a lot of these places that sell the really quality chain are kind of like, you know, going to have to deliver it on a pallet or something. 250 feet of chain would be fairly heavy. So I'm guessing that I could have that delivered to the boatyard, have them pick the pallet up, run it around it with a forklift, set it down in front of the boat, and I could just pull it up with the winch right there while I'm on the ground. So anchor chain, redo, and upgrade. We've been doing a lot of upgrades on this boat. The anchor chain upgrade could be a nice thing to do in the yard. Item number 2 that I've been considering is I did have those guys at S3 Maritime pull out the old residential stacked washer and dryer that were in the closet down here on the way down to the aft cabin, and throw those away. They didn't work. They're old and trashed, and so we just took them out and tossed them. But that I haven't put anything back in that space. So what I've been thinking about doing is kind of putting a floor halfway up in that closet and putting in a single unit that does both the washing and the drying as a single unit, because they make those now. And so that would be best to have that delivered as well while we're in the yard, and then either have them come lift it up on the forklift and we can lift it in through the back and bring it down the stairs or whatever. But it would be much easier than trying to lump the thing down the dock and try to put it in the side door over here. So washer and dryer, anchor chain. The depth sounder that I have is a standalone unit with its own little display up on the upper helm. So it's off to the side. It's not integrated into my Simrad multifunction displays that are networked together and talk to each other up and top and bottom. And so depth is off to the side all the time, and it's also not available to me down here at the lower helm station. I just have no indication of water depth at the lower helm, period. So in the middle of the night, if we're drifting around on the end of the anchor, I can't come out here and look at this lower Simrad and see how much water we're in. So that's not too handy. Now, I'm not 100% sure I want to deal with pulling the existing transducer out and putting a new one in and running it all up there. More what I'm thinking of is that I believe Simrad either sells or integrates with add-on transducers that you could screw to the back of the transom, much like we're doing with our stern thruster. You just put it back on the back at the bottom, and then it would need a wire run up, but then you run a wire up and then it gets into the network, or it gets into the back of one of the displays, and then theoretically both displays have access to depth on the display itself. So right as I'm looking at the chart, I would also be able to see the depth of the water that we're in on the side, and that I think would be well worth doing. So depth sounder. And then it also might be a good time to deal with this dinghy situation, because probably what we're going to wind up having to do is pull the motor off the old dinghy, maybe take the old dinghy off the boat and park it in the slip while I'm over there, and then have a new inflatable dinghy delivered while I'm there and lift it up and set it on top of the boat and get the motor on it and all that. And then while at the same time, I could remove those hinge clasp things that are on the back of the swim platform to hook that dinghy to it. So there's our list for a haul out. Basically, I mean, the thrusters and some chain maybe, and a depth sounder, and fix the dinghy up, and a washer and dryer. And then I'll try to do my best to think this really through and think of anything else I can think of that could be done at the same time, so I can get all that work prepped up, ready to go. We can make most use of our time in the yard and not be waiting for stuff. Like, you know, again, if I can have the stuff delivered to the yard ahead of time and have it waiting for me, then we could just get in there, pull the boat out, block it up, get to work, get all that work done, drop her back in the water, bring it back in the slip, stop spending money in the yard, and do the rest of the physical installation here. Or even get, you know, most of the stuff ready to go for the thrusters here on the boat before I even pull it out. So then the last step might be to get the thruster there, test it a couple times, drop her back in the water, and be good to go. So that's the plan. Now, I got to do a little bit of work with the tape measure to figure out what size washer and dryer I can put in there. I got to do a little work back with the tape measure in those compartments back in the back to figure out how much workspace I have to work with for batteries, and then, you know, see what the average size of a battery is. I have to research my chargers. I'll do a little research on batteries to see, you know, everybody's opinion of batteries. Would I be smart to put lithium batteries back there as well? Maybe, because they are smart and you can talk to them with your phone and see what's going on. But I'm guessing that would be more expensive than it would be worth in the grand scheme of things to do that. You know, I know about how much let's say a yellow top Optima deep cycle battery costs, you know, $200. So I'm going to need 4 of those. So we're talking almost $1,000 in batteries. But I would expect if I was going to try to go with lithiums, I would want to stick with the brand I've got, which is the Victron now. And I'm guessing 4 Victron 12 volt batteries of the lithium nature would probably set me back a lot more than that. But I'll look and see, and if it makes sense, I'll do that. If it doesn't make sense, I won't. So a little research, a little tape measure work, a little talking to the yard and see what their schedule looks like, and see, you know, how long it would take to get this done. I'll do that planning. I'll do most of the R&D work probably back in Salt Lake, because I have one kind of final project on the house that I had to order some materials for, and those are in now, waiting for me back there. So I will be heading back midweek this week to get back there and get that job finished up. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on right now, and I haven't driven over Beartooth Pass this summer, and it's gonna not be open for very much longer, and so I'm kind of toying with the idea of bugging out like any minute now and getting part of the way over there and trying to maybe get to Red Lodge, so I could be in Red Lodge in the morning and jump up and do a pass over Beartooth Pass on my way back home. So we'll see if I get that pulled off. If not, I won't. But if I do, I'll show you, because I love that drive. So anyway, that's where we're at right now. So let's go grab a tape measure and do a little tape measuring. All right, we're back here in the aft cabin and on the sides of the bed. So this is the bed. This is kind of a little nightstand built in with a couple of drawers in it. But this cupboard right here is what I've been talking about. So these are set up with a little curtain rod in there and a little shelf in here to be kind of a cupboard. And this piece of wood right here is the false floor that I mentioned. And this is the area that we're thinking about working with. So obviously I do have on this side, I got that blower for the vent for the engine compartment, but I still think I have plenty of room for 2 batteries down here. This is the back transom wall where our bolts are going to be coming through. And then this wall will be where we'll mount our board to put all the electronics on, either that wall or this wall. The other side is exactly the same, except doesn't have that blower in it because the other blower for the engine compartment vents out from the front of it. So there's the plan. I just need to measure that space out a little bit and make sure I see how big that floor is. So it's going to be tough to have both you and me and the tape measure down in there right now. So I'll do this by myself. Just trust me, I know how to run a tape measure, and we're going to measure that spot out. I haven't driven over Beartooth Pass this summer, and it's going to not be open for very much longer, and so I'm kind of toying with the idea of bugging out like any minute now. Here I am back in Salt Lake, and I had a big fat fail at trying to drive over Beartooth Pass. So what happened is I checked the internet before I left. I did not check the Montana Department of Transportation website. I just had asked Siri to if the Beartooth Pass was still open. She, being the incompetent, useless phone assistant that she is, pulled up some website that said Beartooth Pass is currently open. I looked at that and went, okay, I'm good. So I headed out. I got past Livingston, where you could turn and go into the northwest entrance of Yellowstone if you wanted to. Continued on past there to where I was planning on getting off at Columbus, Montana, and then going down to Red Lodge on the 2-lane. And just before Columbus, there's one of those big electronic signs on the highway, and it said Beartooth Pass closed at Vista Point. So where Vista Point is, Red Lodge is the bottom of the Beartooth Pass highway. And so you leave Red Lodge and you go up the canyon, and then you turn and you start kind of, doing the switchbacks up the side of the mountain, and you work your way back up towards the top from that side. And Vista Point is a point that looks out over the north of that canyon, looking back towards Red Lodge, but it's a long ways from there up over the top. So it's a fair drive in there. I didn't want to go in and turn around and come back out, but so it was closed there. When I actually then pulled up the Department of Transportation website, they said it was closed because of seasonal forecast, and that they would be evaluating it the week that I was there to see if they were going to reopen it. I haven't checked to see again if it's open, but I bailed out. I couldn't go over Beartooth. So where I went from there was you can go from Red Lodge over to Belfry, catch the highway straight down to Cody. I did that. I went in the east entrance of Yellowstone, poked around Yellowstone a little bit, went down through the Tetons a little bit, and then back down through Kammerer and Evanston and back to Salt Lake. So failed on that. Took a bunch of pictures, shot some video. I'm using a new camera. Failed on that. I had something set wrong. I overexposed everything. If I can fix up any of the footage and get it reasonable to look at, I might poke some in here, but it turned out really bad. So I did get a cool shot of some geese coming in earlier, just right over my head, so I'll drop that in here. But that's about it. So I'm back in Salt Lake. I've started my research. I'm doing house projects, obviously, but I've started the research on the boat stuff. So here's where we're at. I obviously, what I'm shopping for is my batteries for the thrusters. Again, I told you I need 4 of those. A charger. I was trying to figure out if I needed 1 charger or 2. I have found a charger from a company called Pro Mariner. It's their Pro Tournament 243 Elite blah, 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 4 channel or 4 bank. So basically it'll charge all 4 of the batteries. Now I did have to get a little extension cable because it'll just be on one side and I'll extend over to the other set. But I have all that stuff ordered on the way headed towards Seattle. It'll be there when I get back, I would imagine. And I've done my research on the washer dryer thing on the trawler forum. There's a lot of people have an opinion on that, and most of them said to use one called Splendide, I think was the name of it. I'll verify that. If I get it wrong, I'll put the actual word of it up here, but I think that's what it was. And a lot of people have those on their boats and they say, yeah, they work great, you know, and don't use too much water and all that kind of thing. So again, it'll be a single unit that washes the clothes, dries the clothes, off we go. I have not ordered that yet because I haven't talked to the boatyard yet to see if I can ship that to them. It might be too big to go to my little dockside mail place, but if the boatyard won't receive it, I'll call dockside mail and ask them if they can receive something that big. You know, it's going to be a pretty good size box, I'm sure. So charger handled, washing machine figured out. I haven't looked at chain yet and haven't really done anything about dinghies yet. I have not talked to CV West. We're into the weekend, so I'll have to wait till next week to do that. So there we go. We're making progress on getting everything lined up to be ready to do this job. All right, so I know I've been talking a lot in this one, and this is probably getting pretty darn boring, but I feel like the wheels are turning now, and now that I've just made that decision, it's like everything else that I've always said. Once you make the decision to move forward, it just banishes all the fear and hesitancy, and you just start working on the plan. And now I feel pretty good about this decision to do these thrusters. So I'm actually, dare say it, looking forward to the work. I think it'll be kind of fun. I'm starting to think about building out my wood pieces and all that kind of thing and getting everything laid out, doing a nice tidy job of it and having it all documented well and all that. So I'm going to geek out on this thing. But for right now, I'm going to say goodbye and let this one go so that we can just get it done. I've been talking a lot and you're probably getting bored. So next time you see me, I should be back up there receiving stuff, and I'll go through it all in detail. I'll show you the charger. If I get the washer and dryer, I'll show you that. And if I get my chain all sorted out, I'll tell you what chain I bought. And hopefully if we get the dinghy sorted out, I'll tell you what we're doing with the dinghy. So those are all the things we should be talking about next time around. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.